Welcome to the Staircase Poetry 2nd edition at the Stevens Estate in North Andover, Massachusetts. We have lovely people from Atkinson School and Franklin School in North Andover, and they will be doing 2 poems. You'll hear that, and I hope you'll be pleased. Now, 1, 2, 3.
What the Robin Told by George Cooper. The one told the grasses, and the grasses told the trees. The trees told the bushes, and the bushes told the bees. The bees told the robin, and the robin sang out clear, "Wake up, wake up, spring is here."
Good. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
To My Dear Children by Anne Bradstreet. This book by Annie yet unread, I leave for you when I am dead, that being gone, here you may find what was your living mother's mind. Make use of what I leave in love, and God shall bless you from above.
For those who do not know it, Anne Dudley Bradstreet was one of the founding mothers of this town in 1646. That's why we read that poem. It's to honor her legacy. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Mark Bohr. I'm the Poet Laureate of North Andover. And it's been great to hear the kids do the staircase poetry that Karen organized. And I brought a little program for us, and then we can have an open mic after that, and then I'll close with a poem about North Andover. So I think it'll be really nice. So what are we going to explore today? Spring into Poetry, of course, is about spring, and so I found a little poem, the beginning of the Canterbury Tales, that is set in the spring. And so I thought we would read it, but before we read it, we're going to hear it in Middle English. Now, Middle English is the form of English that was spoken from roughly 1100 to like 1450. May have the years a little off on that, but it's like 1200s, 1300s, and then the beginning of late Middle English into modern English started around the time of Shakespeare. And that's the English that, even though Shakespeare can be challenging to understand, at least is a lot closer to our English. This English in pronunciation is a lot different because there was, I don't know if I have the term correct, but there was the great vowel shift occurred in English where all sorts of the A and the E and the I sound all kind of shifted within the language in the span of, a couple hundred years. And this is before the great vowel shift. Now, I may not have the term exactly right, but I think my explanation.
It's understandable.
Yeah. So that's part of the reason why what we're going to hear sounds so different. Because even though if you look at the word and you read it, it's different than ours today. So what you have in front of you, and what I'm asking everyone to do, is after we listen to the Middle English, we're going to read it together as a chorus. And so you have it in Middle English on the left, and then today's English on the right. And one of the things I like, there are many translations of Canterbury Tales. I liked this one, I'm not an expert, but I liked it because it hewed closely to the original. Some of them use different words. As much as possible, this author used the same word as long as it's a word that we know. So then he worked to find it. And this is by Edwin Duncan. I really don't know anything about him, but he did a full translation of the Canterbury Tales. So, I have this amplifier. And sometimes it's a little cranky, so let's see if this works. And it does that. And then it stops doing it, so.
What they call beatbox.
And so I found this reader of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales that we're going to listen to. And I actually have to find, I'll have to look to see who the reader of this is. It's not listed on, but it was on YouTube, and I thought he did a really nice job. And so here we go. Prologue to Canterbury Tales in Middle English. So here we are back in the late 1300s.
One April, with his shortest sota, the drought of March hath burst to the rota, and bathed every vine in sweet liquor, of which thereto engendered is the flower. When Zephyrus eke with his sweeter breath, in spirit hath in every old and earth the tender croppes, and the youngest sonna hath in his ram is halve corsarona. And smala voles mocket melodia, that slepen all the nicht with open ear. So pricket him natur in hier courages, then longing folk to goen on pilgrimages, and partners for the second strong days to Ferne always goes in sundry lones. And especially from every sheerest end of England to Canterbury they went, the holy blissful mother for to seca, that him hath open one day was seca.
Doesn't
Yeah,
that
sure.
doesn't that take you back in time?
I got one line.
Yeah.
Rota.
Yeah, and they slept all night. I got that one.
Well,
That's
Sure as a sota.
let's find out what it said. So let's start. I'll just read the title, and then after I say Geoffrey Chaucer, then we can begin. Okay?
Yep.
So the Canterbury Tales, General Prologue by Geoffrey Chaucer.
Here begins the book of the Tales of Canterbury. When April with its showers sweet with fruit, the drought of March has pierced unto the root, and bathed each vein with liquor that has power to generate therein and sire the flower. When Zephyr also has, with his sweet breath, quickened again in every holt and heath, the tender shoots and buds, and the young sun, into the ram one half his course has run. And many little birds make melody that sleep through all the night with open eye. So nature drifts them on to tramp and rage, and then falls long to go on pilgrimage, and palmers to go seek across strange strands, to distant shrines well known in sundry lands, and especially from every shire's end of old England they to Canterbury wend, the holy blessed martyr there to seek, who helped them when they lay so ill and weak.
Great.
Well, Mark, I'm just a tad disappointed because I was thinking we were going to read the old
Old English.
Oh, my.
but that was lovely.
We sort of did it in central North American accent. That's around Toronto.
Oh,
To
Toronto.
generate within and smell
Actually,
the fire.
It was a
If you want a
beautiful
challenge,
rendition.
let's do it.
Why don't we do it? Let's do it.
One of April.
Sure. All right, I think we've been thrown down the gauntlet by our librarian.
The Gontilete.
Right, exactly. Actually, before we do that, I
First with.
Whoop. Get the thing to tape.
It's gotta be. You can dance to it.
Don't know what to say.
Don't stay on the foot.
I just thought it was interesting to note a couple things, and you probably heard it as we were going over it, is that, like I was saying, the different vowels, like the E was more of like an A sound, I think. You know, that was one thing that I noticed.
Right.
But there were some other things that were really neat. So night was something like Nick.
It sounded German.
It sounded
They
German.
pronounced
Yeah.
all the letters.
Yeah, it
It
sounded
sounded
like
part Danish, part French.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of it actually sounds like French.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not English.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very French.
Yeah.
Oh, Latin too. You're right.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Latin, French,
Yeah.
all the,
Yep.
I'm actually not sure if
Sure.
there's, I guess there might be some French, like old French in there.
cozy one.
Yeah.
It's a language too.
Oh,
It is a language. So-
they say a lot was from Danish.
Right, 'cause that was the root.
Yeah, the Frisian sound, so.
Yeah.
Right,
Wow,
so
interesting.
that's why,
In the Frisian, on the footy suit.
so anyway. I don't know if anybody noticed anything else that jumped out at them.
What
I
jumped
said
out to
what
me when about 2/3 of the way down, where they're talking about sleep through all the night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Open, it sounded
Yeah,
like
that's German.
air to me, almost as if it was ear as opposed to eye.
Mm-hmm.
Or the net. Yeah.
so,
Net with open E.
That actually sounds Scottish.
I,
Somebody,
I give it away. Yeah. The family sound.
I also thought there were some funny things in there because they're talking about the birds, so here it is spring, the birds have returned, and birds are making melody, and
The breezes.
they're the breezes,
Yep.
and the meaning is a little bit hidden, but it talks about sleeping through all the night with open eye. So I think what happens is the birds return, they up early before dawn, the birds are all singing,
You can't sleep.
you can't sleep.
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
And as a result, nature pricks them on, because of this, if people are irritated, to ramp and rage, and go on a pilgrimage to,
Yeah. Even then,
I don't know, some just
Run away.
Where Rampage comes from? Ramp and Rage, Rampage.
Oh,
Rampage rage, huh?
yeah.
huh,
good.
good.
Rage against the dying of the night.
So, anyway, just that was some of the things that
Very
stood out for me.
fun.
Right.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
I think you got some Bobby Burns too on there.
Bobby Burns. Oh
Yeah,
my
that's
God.
written with a Scottish sound.
That's like a Bob Frost.
Yeah.
So I'll just give just a little bit more, what?
No,
So you'll be up next, and I just had one more thing to add. You know, so I learned a little about the Canterbury Tales. What is interesting, and some of the people who've read it may already know this, that it's a competition. So there are 24 people who give a story, and whoever has the best story is given a dinner at the inn when they return to London. So they're going from London to Canterbury and then back,
Huh.
and all 24 of them give their tale, and you know, as a competition. So, which I thought was neat.
Thank you. Good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So we have our first
Emma?
open mic, Emma.
Yes,
I'd like you to come up and read a poem.
excellent. Very good. And tell people who you are.
Yep.
I'm Emma,
Mhm.
and we made this book, and my friend made a poem, so I'm going to read it. It's called Happiness and Friends. Sometimes you feel so much and you feel out of touch. Sometimes when you're with your friends, you feel happiness. Friends make you feel connected. Friends make you feel loved. Friends bring you out and away from sad emotions. Be a good friend and all your friends will feel the same way.
Excellent. Tell who wrote the poem. Who's for your friend who wrote the poem?
Paige Eddie.
Yes, she's in your Girl Scout troop. Yes,
That's really.
and mention that that's the Girl Scout work. You did that for your Girl Scouts.
Yeah, we did this for the Bronze Award that we were doing, so we made a book.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
nice.
you. Excellent.
Since we have a small number of people, I think we can do this kind of free form. Who would like to read a poem next? Do we have a hand?
I'll read one.
Jill.
Okay,
I'll be brave.
very good.
So I was just going to say, considering the day, I'm going against the convention of the day because the weather did not really cooperate, but it is spring. And we are experiencing lovely spring showers. And it's a tad longer than 10 lines. And I
That's quite
did
a lot.
actually, I tried to keep it all intact. And I love Billy Collins, and he, at one point, I forget exactly his dates, but he was the US Poet Laureate, as you probably know. And he just writes very accessible poetry, but he's so creative and kind of imaginative, and brings the ordinary into another, another place. But this is pretty straightforward. It's called Today. Today by Billy Collins. If ever there were a spring day so perfect, so uplifted by a warm, intermittent breeze that it made you want to throw open all the windows in the house and unlatch the door to the canary's cage, indeed rip the little door from its jamb, a day when the cool brick paths and the garden bursting with peonies seemed so etched in sunlight that you felt like taking a hammer to the glass paperweight on the living room end table, releasing the inhabitants from their snow-covered cottage so they could walk out, holding hands and squinting into this larger dome of blue and white. Well, today is just that kind of day.
Oh my God. Beautiful.
Next.
Debbie, are you gonna read?
I didn't bring anything.
Grab one of his book.
I'll read this.
All right.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Gail Henny, and the poem I'm going to read for you is one that I wrote. It's called Springtime, and it appeared in the Methuen Life magazine in 2018. Springtime. Through the mesh of a homespun straw hat, the world is verdant with undulating lush boughs, catkins, textured trunks, red buds, tiny serrated leaves, mare's tail, tickling satin sky, erratic insects on the hunt, a mockingbird's stolen song. Purple crocus fade as golden daffodils sing their splendor. Pink tulips cup the sun, spring scent dances in apple blossoms, translating time into the tangible. Thank you.
Would you like to do? No? No, you sure? Okay, thank you.
I got
Okay.
And
Elena? Or Jim? Okay, no, Jim, go ahead.
he's here.
He's here? Okay. Don't forget Jack.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great job.
So a taki is a small, sort of playful, bouncy horse in Tibet that they reintroduced there on the open plains. So these are short rhyming things. So this is my idea of a cave painting.
Did you create the image?
You're right.
Yeah, So
It looks like the ones in,
Lascaux,
Le Croix, something in France.
Yeah, that's the idea. So you get a picture on your computer and you get clear plastic. And you just imagine that you're drawing from memory with a piece of charcoal. You use fabric paint for shirts, you know. And you can or you can press them and they come out feathered. And, I'm very advanced at being primitive. So remains. When time has washed its hands of me, my flesh returned to waiting dust. I hope some marks and thoughts remain and grow like seeds through gain or trust. For we are more like verbs than nouns, a pulling oar, a crow, the rain, and each live thing will change the course of what becomes and what remains.
Thought I'd read a poem by John Keats. This is called The Grasshopper and the Cricket. And you probably know that he was very young when he died. He wrote many of the great English poems in English, even so. This is such a simple poem. And I'm sure you know this line, the first line. The poetry of earth is never dead. When all the birds are faint with the hot sun and hide in cooling trees, a voice will run from hedge to hedge about the new mown mead. That is the grasshopper's. He takes the lead in summer luxury. He has never done with his delights. For when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. The poetry of earth is ceasing never. On a lone winter evening when the frost has wrought a silence, from the stove there shrills the cricket's song, in warmth increasing ever, and seems to one in drowsiness half lost, the grasshoppers among some grassy hills. And the word mead means meadow. We know it as a drink. Right. It's another definition. Thank you.
Jane, are you ready? Are you ready?
Well,
Find one?
yeah, I was gonna, should I?
Good.
Sure. Yeah. I was gonna read this one the other night, but I chose a different one, so excuse my phone, but.
Okay.
It's the modern world. Yeah. It's by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud. His most famous poem, also known as, commonly I think is Daffodils.
Probably, yeah.
I think. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Oh, a poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils.
And just say, I actually posted William Wordsworth's poem on Facebook this morning.
Oh, you did?
In advance of this event tonight.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Because I was thinking of the daffodils too.
Right, of course we all are. Jonquils. Oh, I love it. Yes.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jean Madden and I'm scared to death.
Just like to say, this is the first poem I've written since I was probably in grammar school.
Oh my.
And midst moving and all the clutter and
Oh.
lack of calm, I sat down to write and I wrote a poem which just came out. I didn't. So I write other things but not poems. Calm. When the sun streams into my house, shining brightly through the shutters, warming every room, I feel calm. When the rain falls gently on my bedroom windows, all at once leaving them misty and cool, I feel calm. When I sit in my car and look out over the nearby pond, no matter the season or the weather, I feel calm. When I walk along my favorite beach and the cool ocean waves gently swirl and rush over my feet, I feel calm. When the sweet scent of blooming springtime flowers fills my senses with every breath I take, I feel calm. When I take a new path in the nearby woods and my feet crunch on the fallen autumn leaves, I feel calm. When the snow begins to gather on the leafless trees and sleeping gardens, I feel calm. When I sit and hold a grandchild in my arms, while his or her eyes slowly flutter like a butterfly and then finally close, I feel calm. When I return the warm hug of a daughter or a sister or a dear friend that fills my grieving heart, I feel calm. And most of all, when I think of Paul and remember his hand gently resting in mine, or feel how he looked at me with smiling eyes just before a sweet kiss, I feel calm. With all these moments, I feel calm, but so much more than that, I feel love.
There's a term in poetics called anaphora, which is exactly what you did. It's the repetition of a word or phrase, the I feel calm. And it gives a sort of a musicality to the poem.
I think it has a calming effect.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
What's it
called?
called?
She doesn't
Which is fine.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to
I
do.
might pronounce it anaphora.
Do we have any more?
Oh.
You go around robin.
One person who has
Oh.
read yet.
Yes, they didn't really bring any poems, but I will read one from the Girl Scout. This was the Girl Scout troop 67446. Emma and her sister Abby and 4 other girls are in the Girl Scout troop. And they decided to do a book and I helped them with that. And I'm so proud of what came out. It's photos, prose, poetry, artwork, beautiful artwork. Now, this is Never Give Up by Paige Eddy. When you never give up, you can accomplish much. When you never give up, you will try harder. Things may seem hopeless. Things may seem tough. But when you never give up, you will always be enough. I love that.
Yeah, closing line is lovely.
Yeah. And it surprised you at the end.
Right.
I could see it. Yeah, just keep saying that.
So,
Would they like to read together?
yeah, would you guys like to read
Yeah,
some?
would you have to
Actually,
read together?
Would you like to stay right where you are and read a poem? It's up to you. Yeah, okay.
Sit in the chair?
Yeah, you should think about it sometime, it's a lot of fun. Okay.
I'm glad you came.
Yeah.
And there was a big smile when you read that. Yes. Yes.
So I thought I'd read something to close with, and I think I'll read 2 poems if that's all right. And you know, like when you look around, you can find poetry everywhere, right? So why don't I look around and see if I can find a poetry book here, because there are some books here. Let's see. Oh, Wordsworth.
Wow. Oh, smart. That was gratuitous. Amazing.
And then, well, that's very strange.
Was it planned?
And guess what poem it's marked to? I mean, like, who would have done this? Like, what? This must have been here for like 100 years. And a very old Post-it note.
Oh, what's our?
See, it barely peeled off. I mean, it's
Oh
all.
my gosh.
And
Still
it's the
fresh.
poem, I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Yeah.
When I was
Did you
here,
actually find that there, or did you,
I
are
found
you
this-
joking? Are you joking about that?
no, when I was
Also
here,
very, very significant in this play.
Uh-huh.
They appear in opportune times in different places.
I think he might have helped make that opportunity.
You,
See, that's why I was
I think-
asking, I don't know.
I think you were haunted when you were looking.
Right, right.
Well, there was a serious reality. I've been here nearly 4 years, and one day I can wander in and look at a book in the bookcase that I've never seen before, and be like amazed by it.
They're
One of
beautiful
the
books.
Yeah, beautiful books.
That is
Yeah.
interesting.
I actually didn't remember which poem I marked.
You took the Post-it note out.
Oh.
Can't remember the card trick.
But you know what?
Forsooth.
I'll read the one right before it,
Okay.
you know? And this is, O Nightingale, thou surely art. Okay? So here we go. O Nightingale, thou surely art, a creature of a fiery heart. These notes of thine, they pierce and pierce, tumultuous harmony and fierce. Thou singest as if the god of wine had helped thee to a valentine. A song in mockery and despite of shades and dews and silent night, and steady bliss and all the loves now sleeping in these peaceful groves. I heard a stock-dove sing or say his homely tale this very day. His voice was buried among the trees, yet to be come at by the breeze. He did not cease, but cooed, and somewhat pensively he wooed. He sang of love with quiet blending, slow to begin and never ending. Of serious faith and inward glee, that was the song for me.
Oh,
Beautiful.
For the modern audience, you have to be careful when you pick up a book, you know, of older poetry, because like you're not going to find a short one. You know, but in the days before TV, if you're sitting around the fire,
Is it by one poet or is it many
this
different
is all.
poets?
These are collected poems of William Wordsworth.
Okay.
This one. So,
Very nice.
all right, and then I thought I'd finish with a poem about North Andover.
Yes.
And one of the things, as I started to write more and more poetry, like in the last 5 years, I got better at it. I got built some skills up, which was really interesting and really strange. Because I used to write poetry only in the like when I was hit by lightning, so to speak. You know, like something struck me and I would write a poem. And you don't get hit by lightning that often, so you don't write a lot of poems. Which is a good thing or not. But as I started to write more poems, I developed a facility in learning how to write, based on just having an idea and developing it. And it was really a lot of fun. And I used to think that like working on something would ruin the poem because it had to be just that capture of an idea. And it turns out it's not. If you work at it and you write, it gets better. And so that's something for kids to think about
Editing.
when you learn about writing, is that you can explore an idea and you get more ideas. So something to think about. So, and that's the way this one happened. I had an idea and needed to write a poem. A Good Inland Town is the name. And I needed to write something because when I was going to be poet laureate, I had to write a poem about North Andover. Okay, so here we go. And there's a little preface here to A Good Inland Town. In August 1702, Judge Samuel Sewall wrote about his travels to Andover. And what's interesting, if you look back at the history of this Judge Samuel Sewall, he was one of the judges who oversaw the witch trials.
1692.
And so there's something very interesting with just this little line that's captured here in his journal. I'm thinking about 10 years prior, barely, he was an unfortunate instrument to some terrible things. And now here he is traveling through Andover, which had the most accused of of being witches. And so here's what he says. He wrote this in his diary. I rid with Mr. Woodhouse and Smith to Andover, a good inland town and of a good prospect. A good inland town. A good inland town. She shares her name with her British twin, but no ruler here wears the crown, for we are home of the citizen king. Her citizens, now or years ago, famous or not yet so, share in her renown. From strands of bell, bronze, and maker, from mother, muse, and kneader, from wool and woven time, from service made sublime, from these we make our rhyme. A.B., the poet, you know her name, walked to the meeting house, that first simple frame. With words her soul did search, and thus made poetry her church. Simon, the well-known man, the Mass Bay governor, was her spouse, yet today the greater fame Anne commands. In 1806, Revere and Son poured the bell, lifted high in the fourth steeple by Captains Johnson and Stevens. In the new fifth meeting house soon it would dwell. When the church was the town, it called from its tower. These tones still carry over tree, town, and common, but for all people now, it keeps the same hours. The 19th century mills were cut whole cloth from New England's ingenious habit and spirit. But it was the men of North Andover who made the mills, with Davis and Ferber as the ratchet and sprocket. In this yarn about wool, from the corner of Water and High Streets, their shop sent machines to weave their twill to every state and to the world. In the rhythm and thrum of the mills, these men were the heartbeat. To America and to the world, women and men from this town went forth to serve. Women and men heard freedom's word. They saw a common foe and risked their lives to fight it. They saw a wrong and tried to right it. And those who paid with limb or life, their families and townspeople still observe. What these men and women gave, may we honor it. In a good inland town, history is not done. No final bell has rung. Her story is still young. Time offers more renown. Those who serve the town in public place or private space serve it well if one must tell, when history and common good are the guide. Then we may go on to say that in a good inland town, and in America today, the voice of the citizen has not died.
Wow.